If you've been involved with a narcissistic woman, there's a good chance you spent a long time questioning yourself. You may have replayed conversations in your head, tried to fix problems you didn't create, and worked harder and harder just to keep the peace. And maybe the most confusing part was this: the more calm, honest, and grounded you tried to be, the more tension seemed to grow. The more secure you were, the more she pushed. The more stable you became, the more she seemed irritated, cold, competitive, or emotionally explosive. That kind of experience can leave you exhausted, because it makes no sense when you're still inside it. You think, maybe I said something wrong. Maybe I should have reassured her more. Maybe I should have been softer, quieter, less direct. But what you were reacting to was not a healthy relationship problem. It was a control problem. And that matters, because if you misunderstand the real issue, you will spend years trying to solve the wrong thing. You'll keep trying to become more acceptable to someone who was never looking for real connection in the first place. A narcissistic woman often does not struggle with confidence because confidence is bad. She struggles with it because genuine confidence makes her feel exposed. It interrupts the system she depends on. It weakens her ability to control the emotional environment. And when someone cannot control you through guilt, confusion, fear, approval, or withdrawal, they often start to feel powerless. That is when their behavior becomes easier to see clearly. Confident people are hard for narcissistic individuals to manage because confidence changes the emotional rules. A truly confident person is not easy to intimidate, not easy to shame, and not desperate to be chosen. That does not mean they are arrogant. It means they are internally anchored. They do not automatically collapse when someone disapproves of them. They do not need constant validation to know who they are. They can hear criticism without being broken by it. They can say no without drowning in guilt. And to a narcissistic woman, that kind of person can feel deeply threatening. The reason is simple. Narcissistic behavior depends on emotional leverage. It needs insecurity somewhere in the room. It needs someone who can be made to chase, explain, prove, or repair. It works best when the other person is unsure of their worth, afraid of conflict, eager to keep the connection, or willing to abandon themselves for harmony. But confident people are less available for that role. They are not perfect, and they can still be hurt, but they are harder to bend. They notice inconsistencies faster. They ask direct questions. They do not automatically accept blame just because it is handed to them. And that makes manipulation less effective. This is why a narcissistic woman may seem highly attracted to a confident person at first, and then increasingly hostile toward them later. In the beginning, confidence can look exciting to her. It can feel high value. It can enhance her image. Being connected to a strong, capable, self-respecting person may make her feel elevated. She may idealize that person, pursue them intensely, mirror their interests, and act deeply impressed by their maturity or strength. But over time, that same confidence becomes a problem. Because now she is no longer just enjoying it. She is reacting to what it means. It means she cannot fully dominate the emotional space. It means she may not be able to control the story. It means the other person may eventually see through her. That is where the tension begins. One common pattern is subtle devaluation. Instead of openly saying, "Your confidence makes me uncomfortable," she may start taking small shots at your character. She may call you selfish for having boundaries. She may say you think you're better than everyone else just because you don't agree with her. She may act offended by your independence. She may become cold when you are doing well, dismissive when you feel proud of yourself, or strangely irritated when other people respect you. What is happening underneath that behavior is not always visible in the moment, but often she is reacting to the fact that your stability highlights her instability. Confident people also disrupt the fantasy a narcissistic woman wants to maintain. She often wants to be the emotional center, the one who defines what is real, what is hurtful, what matters, what counts as loyalty, and what your role should be. But confidence creates resistance to emotional rewriting. If she says, "You're too sensitive," a confident person may calmly say, "No, that was disrespectful." If she gives the silent treatment, a confident person may not beg for reconnection. If she uses jealousy to provoke insecurity, a confident person may step back instead of competing. If she distorts the truth, a confident person may simply say, "That's not what happened." These responses are powerful because they refuse the false frame. And narcissistic people depend heavily on controlling the frame. That's why you may have noticed that she could handle people who constantly chased her much more easily than she could handle people who stayed grounded. Someone who is anxious, approval-seeking, or emotionally dependent gives her more room to lead the dynamic. She can reward and punish. She can withdraw and then return. She can create confusion and then offer temporary relief. But confident people are less likely to keep playing when the game becomes obvious. And once she senses that, she may escalate. Escalation can look like many things. She may become more critical. She may start comparing you to others. She may question your intentions, attack your tone, bring up old issues, or accuse you of being controlling when you are simply holding a boundary. She may provoke arguments and then act like you are the unstable one for responding. She may test how much disrespect you will tolerate. And if she still cannot break your confidence, she may try to break your reputation. This is an important truth many people miss. When narcissistic control fails privately, it often shifts publicly. Smear campaigns, victim narratives, selective storytelling, and image management become ways to recover power. Why does this happen? Because beneath narcissistic behavior is often a very fragile sense of self. On the surface, she may appear superior, self-assured, desirable, and fully in control, but that presentation is often compensating for something much weaker underneath. Real confidence is quiet. It does not need to dominate. It does not need to win every interaction. It does not collapse when someone disagrees. Narcissistic confidence is different. It is often inflated, defensive, and dependent on constant reinforcement. So, when a genuinely confident person enters the picture, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. One is built on internal stability. The other is built on external control. And control becomes much harder when the other person is not easily shaken. This is also why a narcissistic woman may interpret calmness as defiance. In healthy relationships, calm discussion creates safety. In narcissistic dynamics, your calmness can frustrate her because it prevents emotional takeover. If she is trying to provoke guilt, panic, or self-doubt, and you respond with clarity instead of emotional collapse, she loses traction. That loss of traction can make her angrier than the original issue itself. You may have seen this and wondered why a simple, reasonable response made things worse. It made things worse because the goal was never only to discuss the issue. The goal was to control the emotional outcome. Another thing confident people tend to do is trust their own perception. Again, not perfectly, but more than people who have been trained to distrust themselves. And that matters because narcissistic manipulation often begins by weakening your connection to your own mind. If she can get you to doubt your memory, doubt your motives, doubt your reactions, and doubt your right to feel hurt, then she can gradually reshape your reality. But confident people are harder to isolate from themselves. They may still try to understand her, they may still give second chances, but they are more likely to notice when things consistently do not add up. They are more likely to say, "Something feels off here." And that internal signal threatens the entire dynamic. You may also have noticed that she seemed to want confidence, but only in a form she could benefit from. She may have loved your competence, your strength, your leadership, your emotional steadiness, or the way others respected you, but only as long as those qualities served her needs. The moment your confidence turned into self-protection, it became unacceptable. The moment you used your clarity to say, "No, I won't do this anymore," she changed. This is one of the clearest signs that the relationship was not built on mutual respect. Healthy love does not punish self-respect. Healthy love does not become hostile when you stop overgiving. Healthy love does not need you to shrink in order to stay close. And this is where many survivors get stuck, because they think, if confidence threatened her, maybe I should have been more gentle or more understanding. But understanding someone's wounds does not require you to participate in their damage. You can understand that narcissistic behavior often comes from deep insecurity, fear of abandonment, shame, or emotional emptiness. And you can still accept that it harmed you. Compassion and clarity can exist together. You do not have to hate her to see the truth. You do not have to become cold to become free. You only need to stop confusing her pain with your responsibility. What often hurts the most is that you may have tried to love her in a healthy way. You may have tried honesty, patience, reassurance, communication, and emotional presence. And instead of creating closeness, those things may have been used against you. That can make you lose faith in your own goodness. It can make you wonder whether being open, mature, and sincere even matters. But it does matter. The problem was not that your approach was wrong. The problem was that you brought healthy tools into an unhealthy system. And when healthy tools do not work in a manipulative dynamic, that does not mean they were weak. It means the dynamic was organized around something else. The shift begins when you stop asking, "How do I get her to understand me?" and start asking, "What is this pattern doing to me?" That question changes everything. It brings you back into focus. It helps you see the cost, the mental fatigue, the constant self-monitoring, the pressure to explain basic things, the slow erosion of your confidence, the way you started second-guessing your tone, your needs, your memory, your standards, the way peace started feeling unfamiliar because you had become used to emotional tension. Once you see that clearly, you stop calling it chemistry. You stop calling it passion. You stop calling it a misunderstanding. You start calling it what it was, a destabilizing pattern. From there, boundaries become less theoretical and more necessary. A boundary is not a performance. It is not a threat. It is not an attempt to control her back. It is a clear decision about what you will and will not participate in. It may sound simple, but for people coming out of narcissistic dynamics, boundaries often feel uncomfortable at first because they remove you from your old role. You are no longer the fixer, the pacifier, the emotional shock absorber, or the one who keeps explaining your intentions to someone committed to misunderstanding you. You are simply becoming unavailable for distortion, and that is a major act of self-respect. Calm detachment is another part of healing. Not coldness, not revenge, not becoming emotionally dead. Calm detachment means you stop feeding the cycle. You stop trying to force insight into someone who protects themselves through denial. You stop measuring your worth by whether they finally admit what they did. You stop waiting for the perfect apology to make your pain legitimate. You accept that closure may not come from them. It may come from your own clear recognition of the truth. That is hard, but it is also freeing. Because once your clarity no longer depends on her agreement, you begin to recover your peace. And peace may feel strange at first. After manipulation, calm can seem empty. Stability can seem boring. Respect can even feel unfamiliar. But that does not mean something is missing. It means your nervous system is adjusting to what safety actually feels like. You are learning that love does not need to be confusing to be real. You are learning that connection does not require self-abandonment. You are learning that someone else's inability to handle your confidence is not evidence that your confidence is a problem. In fact, your confidence may be the very thing that saved you. Even if it was damaged, even if you lost touch with it for a while, some part of you kept noticing. Some part of you kept resisting the false story. Some part of you knew that love should not feel like walking on emotional glass every day. That part of you matters. That is the part you return to now. Not the part that begged to be understood. Not the part that over-explained. Not the part that kept shrinking to avoid conflict. The grounded part. The clear part. The part that knows peace is not too much to ask for. So, if a narcissistic woman could not handle your confidence, that does not mean you were too strong, too aware, too independent, or too hard to love. It means your inner stability challenged a system that depended on imbalance. It means your self-respect interrupted the control. It means your clarity exposed what confusion was trying to hide. And while that may have cost you the relationship, it also gave you something more important: a way back to yourself. Healing now is not about proving anything to her. It is not about getting the final word. It is not about making her regret losing you. It is about becoming whole again. It is about rebuilding trust in your own mind, your own feelings, and your own limits. It is about noticing when something feels wrong and no longer talking yourself out of it. It is about choosing relationships where your confidence is welcomed, not punished. Where your boundaries are respected, not challenged. Where your calm is met with calm, not aggression. You do not need to become less confident to keep the peace with a manipulative person. You need to stop sacrificing your peace to stay connected to manipulation. That is the real shift. And once that shift happens, everything starts to change. You become less reactive, less confused, less available for emotional games. You stop trying to be chosen by people who only feel secure when others are diminished. You stop negotiating with what your body already knows. You begin to live from self-respect instead of survival. And that is where real healing starts. Not in forcing closure, not in decoding every last mixed signal, but in the quiet decision to believe your experience, protect your mind, and move forward without needing permission. There is strength in that. There is dignity in that. There is peace in that. And after everything you have carried, peace is not a small thing. It is a return to reality. It is a return to yourself.